Protesters from Portland making the trip down to Eugene, joining a weekly protest against ICE actions at the federal building downtown.
Yeah, this is all coming as Eugene police reporting about 60 people, many wearing all black clothing outside of the building after sunset. Property was damaged and defaced. Good morning and thanks for joining us here on this Wednesday morning. I'm John Mayer.
And I'm Lily Taylor. A lot of stories to get to later in the program. First, though, look outside as you're getting ready for your morning work day.
Yeah, certainly was an interesting one yesterday, and yeah, it looks like we're on track for another here today. Brandon Chavez joining us now over in the Weather Center. Hot one in early fall.
In early fall, kind of. I think it's a perfect timing for it. Nonetheless, though, when we talked about a copy paste of what we saw last week with record-breaking temperatures last Tuesday, we didn't manage to break records, but we still saw quite the toasty one across majority of the area. We're talking upper 80s and low 90s for the Willamette and Umpqua valleys, even near 80s for portions of our coastline. Nonetheless, though, we are starting it off into some 40s, so definitely hanging on tight to a little bit of a cooling trend throughout the morning. Nonetheless, though, still going to continue to push for sunnier and warmer conditions through the remainder of the day. We're talking 50s, near 60s throughout that morning commute, into some 80s and potential 90s once again for some areas by that drive home. Of course, though, we'll start to see the mix of some cloud coverage and cooler conditions heading into the weekend. We'll track out that cooling trend coming up in just a bit.
LSB Live is sponsored by Alpha Towing and Recovery.
All right, thanks for that, Brianna. Well, checking out how things are developing for us out on the roadways, what you'll need to know on that morning commuter live shot, buddy. He's over on Interstate 5 by Beltline, and well, I think you can tell things are looking good to go. Not seeing any major issues out there. A little bit of traffic heading the other direction, but still nothing really getting out of hand. All told, this should be a pretty quiet start to our day. Not seeing any issues in terms of the weather that'll slow you down, and also not seeing any issues that'll really slow you down out there on the roadways. Trip check coming in relatively quiet. That's the way we like to see things, but of course we'll keep you updated, bring any further information you'll need to know before you head out the door throughout the rest of our program. Meanwhile, some continuing coverage this morning regarding ICE protests. 3 people have now been shot at an immigration and U.S. Customs Enforcement detention facility located in Dallas, Texas, earlier this morning. The shooter also reportedly dead from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. Acting ICE Director Todd Lyons confirming that shooting during an interview on CNN earlier today, saying in part, quote, "It could be employees, it could be civilians that were visiting the facility, it could be detainees." Lyons said of those who were shot, continuing to say at this point we're still working through that. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem saying details were still emerging, but the agency was confirming there were multiple injuries and fatalities. Noem saying that the motive remains unclear, noting there's been an uptick, though, of targeting of ICE agents recently. Dozens of emergency vehicles were seen along a highway near the facility. This right here, a live look at downtown Dallas, Texas, again, where all of this happened. Once again, 3 shot at an ICE facility early this morning, and that shooter now believed dead from a self-inflicted gunshot wound.
Another protest against immigration enforcement began here locally yesterday afternoon at the federal building and continued into the night, and the crowd filled with Portland protesters. And now ICE protests in Eugene have stretched across several months, even becoming heated in more recent weeks. Now, one moment when things got heated, not between Department of Homeland Security and protesters, but rather a man who was passing by on his bike yelling at protesters before being struck by one of them. Those joining from Portland saying that they've experienced a more intense response from ICE agents up in Portland, from pepper spray to being struck with rubber bullets. In August, interactions between Eugene protesters and federal officials escalated. Protesters were visibly seen on video being pushed by DHS officers at the federal building. Demonstrators have told our news crews they're protesting after learning people have gone in for immigration check-ins and are being arrested ahead of relocation and silent deportations. We were on scene at yesterday's events. Here's what Portland protesters had to say.
It makes the tactics a little bit stronger, and it makes the thing that we're doing is really in the line with Dr. King of we're being out here, we're being peaceful, we're antagonizing them, and then they come out and they use a bunch of force on us, and people see that.
According to Eugene police, people were throwing objects at Federal Protective Service agents. EPD's mobile response team is continuing to monitor the area.
Now, Eugene Police Department saying that they did not violate Oregon sanctuary laws during an ICE protest at the federal building earlier in the year. That's according to Independent Police Auditor's Office. On Monday, the IPA, which is funded by the city of Eugene and investigates complaints against EPD, made that announcement. They began investigating what they said were numerous complaints following the protest back on July 1st. At that point, protesters in attendance claimed that EPD helped federal agents with immigration enforcement, though EPD said they only responded to federal agents' reports of safety issues and property damage. Oregon sanctuary laws prohibit local law enforcement from aiding federal immigration efforts without a judge's signed warrant. The IPA's independent review of the protest that included videos of the incident, body-worn videos from EPD, and incident reports. Now, the office went on to say that evidence showed that EPD responded to a request for assistance from an outside agency, and police acted within their obligation to protect life and property. When asked about the IPA's report, EPD said it was not going to make a comment.
ICE's actions in Eugene were a point of emphasis for Oregon Representative Val Hoyle during a press conference she held with local media in Eugene yesterday.
I want to be able to go in and talk to some of the people who ICE is holding to find out if they're having access to their attorneys, making sure they know that as their congresswoman that we're willing to make sure that they have the right to due process.
Her concerns over ICE were also tied to her concerns over flock cameras, which continue to be a hot-button topic across our region.
I have great concerns about the flock cameras. What I can say is the way the federal government and ICE and Homeland Security is using access to people's private information should terrify everybody. I have concerns about what is happening with the information that is picked up by these flock cameras.
If you'd like to read more about the usage of flock cameras in Eugene and Springfield, you can go to our website.
And in our crime tracker this morning, Eugene police now confirming yesterday that a man who was arrested last week in connection to a hit-and-run crash, also the man who was suspected in a shooting that shut down a major intersection, even placed a local school in lockout. 21-year-old Zachary John Paget. He has now been charged with armed robbery, as well as other charges related to the robbery and the shooting of a man near the intersection of 30th and Spring Street. That was back on September 3rd. Put the nearby Camas Ridge Community School in the lockout for a few hours. Paget was arrested by Eugene police last Thursday. That's when EPD heard from a resident who told police that the man was at the bottom of a drainage ditch in a heavily wooded area. He was arrested and charged with a number of crimes related to a hit-and-run case from last year. That was one that injured a person. He's still at Lane County Jail.
The Lane County District's Attorney Office has released its report on the deadly officer-involved shooting at a car wash on Gateway Street in Springfield. Back on July 30th, officers with Springfield Police responded to a report of an agitated man at the Chase Bank, which resulted in the death of Daniel A. Kahn. District Attorney Chris Perosa's report says Springfield Police Detective Brian Dunn used reasonable force to protect the lives of his fellow officers and employees at the Happy's drive-through car wash. Kahn was running from officers, brandishing knives in both hands when he was shot twice by Detective Dunn. To see all of our previous coverage, you can head to our website or check out our digital platforms.